All right, it's October as we're recording this podcast, and October around Champaign-Urbana usually is the time people start asking the question, is it basketball season yet? And while they haven't tipped off yet, Illinois is about ready to start practice. Their workouts are in full bore, and Friday, October 1st, we have basketball media day for us locally, so we get to talk to all the players. And Brad Underwood, I'm sure, could take questions for about an hour and a half from us media because we're looking for good hashtag content to get us out of the football malaise right now. But Derek Piper, it is almost basketball season yet. And Central Illinois football fans can't wait to focus on something else other than the Bears and Illini football right now.
Yeah, weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, not the best for those that love football here around here in Central Illinois and whatnot. I mean, we'll see. I'm not folding up shop in the season just yet. I still want to see what Justin Fields has, and hopefully Brett Bielema and company can beat Charlotte and see where this thing goes from here. But the NCAA calendar says it's basketball season now that you can have in-season practice as of this past Tuesday. And Illinois, I think, starting on Friday would be their first one. But that's when we get to talk to Brad Underwood and the players that you were talking about. Illinois basketball media. We'll have Big Ten media days coming up here in about a week. So it's going to get rolling here really, really quick. And it's an exciting time. Again, we're going to have the privilege of covering a top 10, top 15 caliber team, opportunity to win the Big Ten, and a lot of excitement for good reason around this team.
Yeah, and one legitimate already college superstar coming back, right? Like Kofi Cockburn just changes everything he has already about this program, along with Ayo Dosunmu. But Illinois has been winning ever since he came back, or he got here. And then to come back just means a third season of Illinois basketball, barring health. Like they are going to be very good because Kofi Cockburn is a part of this team with good pieces around him. And as we know, a bona fide, probably rising star in Andre Curbelo. He played like a star late in the season anyway. And then you get so many guys back, Trent Frazier, DeMonte Williams, and to have those two guys, Kofi and Andre, at Big Ten Media Days, it's just like rock stars. Like they're rock stars around here. I think people who watch college basketball, that's one of the most exciting duos in the country, Derek. So it sounds like there's not going to be a midnight madness, but it felt like if there's going to be a season to do it, it would be this one just because fans back. They didn't get to see this team last year, and most of the team outside of the legendary Ayo Dosunmu are back.
Yeah, I was hoping they were going to have one of those, and there was some talk here throughout early on in the fall about weighing the decision to potentially have it, and obviously it could be used as a recruiting tool, as it's usually talked about. If you're able to do it right, if you're able to make it an attraction, something that's entertaining to watch, but ultimately decided not to do it. I don't know what the reasoning necessarily was. Maybe it was precautions with COVID still, or just maybe putting pieces together in terms of the event itself, but it doesn't take away from that excitement being there. And it's not many opportunities that you get a chance to really write your name in pen. I mean, some things could go wrong, of course, but writing your name in the top three of the Big Ten, you don't get to do that every year, no matter who you are in this league. So for Illinois to get a chance to do that, you mentioned a lot of the starring role guys, and then some other question marks like in Austin Hutcherson, Coleman Hawkins. We're getting a little bit closer to learning a little bit more about those guys and what they're going to bring this season. So yeah, let's tip it up and roll this season one more time.
By the end of this podcast, let's go over our the rankings we submitted to The Athletic, because you and I kind of combine on it, and they do their poll. Since the Big Ten doesn't like saying this team's picked to finish last, we do participate in the Athletic poll, and we had Illinois, of course, very high in that. We'll go down that list because it's interesting, because I don't think the Big Ten's nearly as strong top to bottom, but is very strong at the top. I mean, the floor of this team, Derek, like you mentioned, top three. I agree with that. I think the top three is pretty clear with Illinois, Michigan, and Purdue. And then I think Ohio State should be reckoned with. I mean, losing Dwayne Washington probably keeps them from being in that conversation, at least preseason. But you and I know how good EJ Liddell is. If you're not voting for Kofi Cockburn for preseason player of the year, I hope it's EJ Liddell, because I think those are the two best players. But I mean, if things don't go right, if this piece doesn't work, I mean, obviously injury can change everything, but top five feels like the floor of this team in the Big Ten, given what they have. And of course, the ceiling is being possibly as good as you were last year going in the NCAA tournament.
Certainly. Yeah. I think if you just lean on what you know about this team already, at the very top with two all Big Ten guys in Curbelo and obviously Kofi, and Kofi's going to be first team All-American preseason, and I would imagine that he finishes into that realm as well and have a chance for National Player of the Year. We know what Trent is. We know DeMonte, Jacob Grandison. Those guys have all proven enough to where we can feel good about what they're going to be. And then there are those X factors mixed in with Hawkins and Hutcherson and what's Omar Payne going to be? Alfonso Plummer, proven guy at the Power 5 level, at least in a role player type of mode and a shooter off the bench. So as we talked about throughout the summer and this offseason, is just the depth is very encouraging. And then if some of those questions are just other supporting cast members click into place. And then also I think that Curbelo's jump shot is a huge thing. If that really comes along and he takes a noticeable step from year 1 to year 2, that's a big part of Illinois being back in that realm of top 10 in the country and trying to win a Big Ten title. And this team, I know that it's been kind of the question all throughout the year leading up to it is, could this team be as good as last year? Could it potentially be better? No matter where you stand, they could go farther. Like in terms of the tournament, that's not really up for debate, I don't think. But yeah, I think it would be an injury or something to one of those top guys to really hit that floor beyond the top 5. Because right now, I just don't see. I think it's 3 teams at the very top, and then a decent gap even between those guys in Ohio State.
Yeah. The other thing about this team, it's just such an old team. Kofi's 21, turning 22, I think shortly. And then you have Grandison and Hutcherson. Like, we'll see what Hutcherson is. We'll talk about it. 23 years old each. Trent Frazier's 23. DeMonte Williams is 23. Coleman Hawkins is in his second season now, which we know usually that's when a huge leap is made. This is just an older roster, Derek, that always seems to do well in the Big Ten. Like regular season, I think that matters so much just week to week to have those older teams. I haven't even mentioned Alfonso Plummer and Omar Payne, right? Alfonso Plummer's 23 years old, I think. So to have those guys even add to that's huge for guys who have been through these battles. When you think of how many teams are resetting, Derek, in the Big Ten, I mean, you think of like Iowa, Rutgers is really resetting with some of the losses they've had. I know they got Baker and Harper back, but like that bottom half that we talk about, some of those teams have really dropped down while Illinois is staying up top and just getting older.
Yeah, even a team like Michigan State is looking for some people to step up into roles where you've lost Aaron Henry and you lost Rocket Watts. And I know they're hoping to be better than they were last year as a collective unit. But to that point that you were making, like how many times have we sat here in an offseason and said this freshman is going to be in the starting lineup and really needs to produce and needs to get past those growing pains as quick as possible, like an Io or like a Adam Miller and Curbelo, because you're going to rely on those guys. And you don't have to do that this year, where you have, 3 that were in that 100 to 150 range, and they'd be lucky just to crack the rotation, even just one of those guys. And that does show the depth. It does show the experience. And yeah, it's an older team. It's a team that for the most part has played together a lot, at least in terms of who you're expecting to throw out there in the starting lineup and to play major minutes for you. And if Omar can fit in and Plummer can fit into that mix, it's something that you feel really good about.
Yeah. So Derek, I always enjoy the preseason, media day press conference from Brad Underwood. We usually go like 40 minutes, but there's usually a lot of hype around a certain player and he drops a comp, whether it's Jason Kidd, Mark Smith, whatever it is. Who's the hyped guy? Is it Hutcherson continually? Cause obviously he's pumping up that one through the John Rothsteins of the world, and Seth Davis. I think he's done that. Coleman Hawkins, we've heard it about. Alfonso Plummer, Omar Payne. Like, who is it? Who gets most hyped tomorrow?
That's a good question, because it has been at different points in the offseason, different guys. Right away in the summer, it was Hutch. And really, you hear around the program, like one of the top players in practice, maybe sometimes most days other than Curbelo, the best guy out there. Now, that was when Kofi wasn't back in Champaign. Then late in the summer, it was Coleman Hawkins. We heard Brad Underwood say he's made as big of a stride as anybody, or has had as good of a summer as anybody in our program. And here in the fall, the whispers around the team is that Omar Payne has just been sensational and been fantastic. Now, how much is he actually going to get to play when you have a big guy in Kofi who's going to at least 25 minutes a game and probably 25 to 28? So Omar playing 15. I don't see him playing the 4 a whole lot. So I think Omar will get a lot of praise But we haven't heard, maybe Alfonso Plummer's that guy. Maybe it's his turn, because I know he's been shooting the lights out, and that's kind of his thing. So maybe he's next up, maybe in this cycle of hype. And I'm trying to think who he, as far as NBA comps or ones that will just make fans go, oh boy, here we go again.
Looks like Steph out there, guys. I can't.
Oh, right.
Can't
Yeah.
No, all right, let's break this down a little bit. I mean, Omar Payne was such a key addition early in this offseason, because if you don't have Kofi Cockburn right now, like Omar Payne's playing 25 to 30 minutes a game, right? If he can stay out of foul trouble. But to have him and Kofi, that's the best. I know Purdue is loaded, but that is an unbelievable advantage against most teams to have Kofi Cockburn. And then, if he has a bad day, Omar Payne is a capable backup, at least a capable rotation player who's a rim runner, can obviously make plays at the rim. Brad has really been building up the jumper, which I have to see before I believe it, because he hasn't shown it in real games. So that's where I go, okay, that's off-season talk. I'm going to wait. But like, to have that rim runner, like, that's an upgrade over Georgie Bashanishvili, right? Now, Alfonso Plummer, like the addition, you do have a small backcourt when he's out there, right? With Trent Frazier, Andre Curbelo, and him. But he does give you a scoring punch that you lost. With Adam Miller had the capability of getting hot every once in a while, just wasn't consistent with it. But I don't think Plummer is going to be better than Adam Miller is going to be as a sophomore, right? So, but still, you added that piece, a different piece. What is your expectation for those two guys, Derek? Because obviously everyone else should elevate their game. We're expecting Coleman Hawkins to get better, Curbelo to get better. Even Trent and DeMonte can get better. But like, how can those guys take Illinois to the next level? Or, how could that maybe Illinois take a step back there?
I think you said it with Payne in terms of his defensive impact in particular. When you look at last year, and Illinois was top 20 nationally in 2-point field goal percentage defense, I think second in Big Ten play at really being able to control the paint and protect the rim. And a lot of that obviously was Kofi and his impact when guards would get in there or challenging big guys to score over him. Now, we saw when Georgie would be his replacement at the 5, it was easy for him to get back down by some bigger centers, or just not being a guy at 6'8", 6'9" that could block shots. Well, Omar Payne can really cover a lot of ground defensively. He's really, really long. I think Fletch told me his wingspan 7'6", and he's got a great vertical. So he's going to be the best rim protector that I think that Illinois has had since Brad's been here. I would say definitely that he's had since he's been here. Not that Kofi's been I think sometimes we get wrapped up in block shots and rim protector. I think you can be a rim protector without blocking a ton of shots. And I think Kofi's done that. But Omar is going to really be able to help Illinois take that step up even farther when Kofi's off the floor and protecting the paint.
Yeah, like, I'm thinking of like a comp to him, like the low end of what it could be. Remember, was it Marcus Thornton? Or who was the big man at Michigan State? Long, skinny, pogo stick. But every once in a while, he'd come into a game and like dominate. Bingham. Yeah, Marcus Bingham.
Yeah.
Like, he'd come in and like he just dominated a game defensively for a couple minutes because he could just block a shot so easily. If he can provide that kind of role for Illinois, and I think Illinois' expectations are even higher for him. Yeah, I mean, if you talk about rim protector, probably the best since my guy Nana, right? Like, yep. and offensively, I think they have similar questions, but boy, to have that as your second guy, I don't know if he's good defensively as Nana, and probably a better athlete, but that's a huge advantage coming off the bench.
Yeah, it definitely is. And if there were a circumstance where Kofi get in foul trouble, he's going to have to prove it. But I think physically being developed, and then just what he's shown with that legit height and length, like if he had to guard Hunter Dickinson for a decent chunk of the game, or a Travion Williams, or go on down the list in the Big Ten, you'd feel a lot better about that as opposed to what you felt last year in Georgie. I think offensively, like, Georgie had the more advanced back to the basket game. I know that was inconsistent at times past the freshman year. And Omar just hasn't shown that through his collegiate career, like having a whole lot to his game back to the basket. Even, like you said, jump shooter. He's taken 3 jump shots in college in 2 years. So I got to see that as well. But pick and roll, I think that based on what you hear and based on what you've seen on film, like, he can really go up and catch the lob. And we know that Curbelo can throw it as well as anybody. And that's going to be something that you would think he could get, 3 to 4 buckets a game, at least, just being able to catch lobs, or even just, adding a putback as well.
Yeah, Kofi had 78 dunks last year, which is probably more than we saw in the entire John Gross era, and probably Bruce Weber era combined. Like, it's unbelievable what Kofi does. Like this will probably this season should set the record with dunks because I'm thinking of Andre Curbelo feeding both those guys. Like Curbelo should be able to get Payne some easy offense at some point, whether it's a lob or whether it's dicing through the paint and on the weak side there's Payne for an easy dunk. Like, and he can do that, right? Like so. That's my expectation for him, Derek, is just make an impact at the rim. Anything else seems like a big bonus. But how about Plummer?
Yeah, with Plummer, I think you said it with Adam Miller taking a step up as a sophomore, which would have been fully expected. And when you lose Io to have, not that he would be the go-to scorer with Kofi, but in the backcourt, he would be viewed as your go-to scorer. And you would expect that guy to really step up. Plummer's a little bit more of a supplemental catch and shoot type of guy. And on that note with catch and shoots, you look at Miller last year as a catch and shoot guy. He hit a number of threes, but he wasn't necessarily, to use the word elite, as Brad likes to say. I think he shot about 35%, 36% on catch and shoots, and Plummer was like 47, bordering on 48. Like, he was one of the best in the country on catch and shoot opportunities, and that's essentially going to be his role. Like, you're going to see him in the corners. When Kofi gets the ball in the paint, he can kick it out if Kofi's going to get more assists this year, which I think that is something that he's been coached up a lot on this offseason, or just Curbelo sees you cheat inside, he's going to kick it to the corner or the perimeter. A guy that's really good in transition. He's very fast and can really just fill it up for stretches of the game. So I think that's something that we can definitely predict out of him and expect him to shoot, 40% from three and be a high volume 3-point shooter. But defensively, I do have some questions. Like, I think that you do like that he's decently strong for being a smaller guy, and because he's been in college for a while, he's an older guy. But if he has to guard threes, like if you are going to go with Curbelo, Trent, and Plummer, Plummer probably be the guy you got to guard the three, and that's going to create some mismatches. So I think you're going to have to pick and choose how you want to play him and what lineup combinations you want him in. But overall, I think that instant offense when he's on the court is something you're definitely going to be expecting.
Yeah, I feel like this team could be even more dangerous offensively, Derek, just explosive with their 3-point shooters and the pace they can play with the guys they have. Defensively, I'm interested to see how they change, but I'm looking at like the KenPom stats. I'm making my call. I think the biggest changes of these KenPom stats could be 3-point attempts per field goal attempt. They were 320 last year out of 355, whatever Division I teams. 30% of their field goal attempts were 3-pointers last year. I expect that to go way up. Like, it would not surprise me if they're top 100 in the country, certainly top half. Defensively, how do you see them change? I mean, obviously Kofi, when you have Kofi, you're probably going to do something similar. But do they get more aggressive on the perimeter with guys like DeMonte, smaller guards, trying to force turnovers? Because they didn't force a lot of turnovers. They were really good defensively last year, but they didn't force a lot of turnovers. That would be one area I think they change. But when Kofi's your center, you're probably going to continue to do what you did last year.
Yeah, I still think the goal is going to be the same in terms of pack line type of principles, not gambling too much. I mean, you give Trent Frazier the freedom to go after a steal if he sees the opportunity. I think that Plummer would be the same way. And maybe there are some different lineup combinations where you play a different style. I think when Omar Payne's in the game, maybe you're doing some different things in ball screens. Maybe you're switching. Maybe you're hard hedging. Maybe when you play a smaller guard lineup, you are pressing more on the ball handlers and the passing lanes to try to get some steals. So maybe just having the variation of different things you can do defensively is something this team will have versus last year, where it was pretty standard. And I mean, look, they were very good on defense last year. So changing anything wouldn't necessarily have to be the case. But you think about, Adam Miller wasn't like a huge guard, but he was 6'3" and had some length to him. And obviously Io was very long and could get in passing lanes and everything. So if you're going to not be as long on the perimeter, maybe you would dial up the heat a little bit. But I think overall it's pretty much the same goal, and still having, like we talked about, Kofi in the paint, Omar in the paint. If people are going to go in there and try to score, you feel pretty good about being able to contest.
All right, Derek, can I give you some rapid fire questions before we get to recruiting and our Big Ten rankings?
Let's do it.
Kofi's stat line, points and rebounds.
Oh, crap. 20 and 12.
Wow. See,
20 and 11.
I do think the rebounds are going to be higher than people even expect. The points I'm interested in, because does he play long enough? Do they feel like they have to play him 30 minutes with Payne? Like, does he go under that? There's only 4 guys in the last since 1993 who have averaged 20 and 10. I think we've gone over this list before, but it was Daniel Toro was the most recent, Chris Humphreys, Evan Eschmeyer, and Glenn Big Dog Robinson. So that stat line, I'm wondering if he gets to. The points, I think, are harder for him probably than the rebounds. It'll be interesting. All right, who starts the season at the 4? Who ends the season at the 4?
You're going to start Jacob Grandison at the 4, and I think you're going to end the season with Coleman Hawkins at the 4.
Which freshman cracks the rotation? You're going to get so many people angry at you by answering this.
I know, right? Luke Goody would be the one he's the best candidate right now. I think that he will be the guy that will be the first off the bench of the freshman.
Okay. How many points per game does Austin Hutcherson average?
Oh, here we go. All
right, I'll give you an over under. How about that? 7.
Okay. I'll go over. I think over 7, below 11. So we're somewhere in between there, maybe 9. How about 9?
That's pretty good. I would take that in an instant. I mean, some people are, building them up to be like 15 points a game right away. And maybe you can do that, but hey, I'll take 9 points a game on this team. Okay. And let's see, who's the worst matchup in the Big Ten for Illinois?
It's a good question. Got to see it out of Michigan, right? I mean, they're very, very talented. Very talented.
I'm going to Ohio State.
Yeah.
They got all them big wings and those 5s who can stretch the floor with Kyle Young. And when they play EJ Liddell, even though EJ Liddell don't want to play there, like that's a tough matchup for Illinois. So those Ohio State games I'm always concerned about, just because I think matchup wise, like Purdue, I think Illinois, because they have Kofi, can out Purdue. Yes. They got better guards, right? Well, Jaden Ivey's gonna be pretty good, but I just think they have more depth at the guards. Those will be fun matchups, but Ohio State, even a team like Maryland, sometimes like with Dante Scott, they got a bunch of big wings like that. That's where Illinois is a little weaker. They don't have the big wings, which is why they added the freshmen they did.
It's not going to be Nebraska this year like it was last year. No, I was kidding.
I think Freddie's boys will be a little bit better. We'll talk about that here, coming up. Derek, recruiting, let's get an update. What is Illinois going to add in 2022? It was a great start, been kind of stalled out ever since then, and also a big recruiting weekend for them in state with some younger guys as well. And we'll get to our order of finish in the Big Ten, our rankings heading into the season as well. That's coming up next on the Illini Inquirer podcast. All right, Derek Piper, great guards. That's no longer a problem. Illinois continues to add them. Jaden Epps coming in next year. Sincere Harris coming in next year, assuming they sign, which they will in November. But nothing since then. Nothing since that nice, surge in the summer there with Trent Frazier. And, of course, the 2 decommits have gone on elsewhere. But where are we at here in the class of 2022? Because this is a time a lot of guys are committing, a lot of visits happening, and we're about a month and a half away from the early signing period. So just get us up to speed on where Illinois is at in the class of 2022.
As you mentioned, riding that wave of momentum back in July, you got 2 commits from Jaden Epps and then Sincere Harris in the span of 2 weeks. And you were hoping that would really lead to another commit. Obviously, as we talked about, Cam Corn was a big miss for this staff, and you're hoping that maybe you win a home run type of swing and a Cam Whitmore or maybe a Jaden Shoot. I know you didn't get a visit there, but the waters have calmed and you've taken some swings, and some guys still have some decisions to make here very shortly. Like Otego Away is going to announce on Friday. You're going to have Cam Whitmore here pretty soon. Ty Rogers is going to have to wait a little while longer. As we talked about here within the last month, the board has thinned out here recently. You have Cam Whitmore, who's going to make a decision here pretty soon. And Illinois had to shoot your shot with that type of a talent, being from around Baltimore and his relationship with Chester. But it's tough with only being a 2-hour drive from Villanova and all the success that they've had, and they've won 2 titles in the last decade. They're the odds-on favorite to be able to secure his commitment. Otego Away, that's one you got in late. So did Oklahoma, which there's been some buzz that they're going to be actually the pick. But Penn State has also been pretty strong for a while. So I think it would be Oklahoma or Penn State. I've heard Oklahoma here recently, nothing for sure. it's not going to be Illinois. I know that for sure. And then Ty Rodgers, where you're hoping that's Tim Anderson's big first splash and his arrival as a recruiter and what he can do. And as we talked about before, the Mean Streets connection, that's something that is definitely at play here, but you're going to have to wait this thing out. He's got some big visits coming up. He's at Michigan State this weekend. He's got Memphis on the schedule. He's got Alabama on the schedule for visits. All three of those programs recruit pretty well. So that's going to be difficult, to say the least, but I think they have done a good job with him. It's just whether you can sustain these next couple of weeks against those other big players. So beyond that, you don't really have any headliners. If you miss on Whitmore OA and Rodgers, I'm not saying you're missing on Rodgers. Rodgers would be the one of the three that you still have a decent shot at right now. But I would understand why some people are disappointed in the missed opportunity of having the really early success with the 2 top 100 guards and not being able to parlay it with another big get in this class, if that is ultimately the case. But if you have to go to the transfer portal for some other pieces, it's not the worst thing in the world for a team that's supposed to be pretty good.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting, is how much can they sell in the spring? Because let's be honest, Derek, like, this team should be really good again, and maybe 2 years in a row makes them, and maybe into the NCAA tournament, you get to the second weekend, right? Like, that's what they really missed, that kind of buzz around their program. But obviously they've been able to get talent, and they're still adding talent. You get Omar Payne for several years, you get Jaden Epps and Sincere Harris, and you probably don't get Kofi for a 4th year here, but Curbelo, there's a decent chance he comes back for a 3rd year. I'm not saying he will, but you could get him back, and that's another really good season with all the guys that you have. And if Austin Hutcherson's really good, you could have him for another, you know what I mean? Like, so you could still build on that. Plus, the staff has been pretty good in the spring, right? Like, they've found guys that are pretty impactful in the spring. And, if they can sell that, if they can find some guys, be able to capitalize off another good season, that'll be pretty interesting to watch. Plus, as you said, the transfer portal just completely changes everything. Because, last year they get RJ Melendez and Brandon Podziemski in the second half of the spring. And now if you can add more guys, and if, Kofi does move on, what a sell that is to another center prospect or a 4 prospect, if they can finally land the 4 prospects that they really, really want. And then you should have plenty of guard space, right? And what guard wouldn't want to play on an offense where I would assume who was free to do what he did? Andre Curbelo has been free to do what he did. Apparently Adam Miller didn't, but I think a lot of that was Curbelo having the ball in his hands. And, I still, my panicometer is very low on talent accrual with Brad Underwood and the staff right now. I get it. You said it. They miss an opportunity. I agree with that. They miss an opportunity maybe to really blow the lid off this class and kind of do what Ohio State's doing, which is really, really impressive, or Michigan. And those are the teams, when it comes to talent accrual, that you're trying to keep up with.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And this has been a team that the last 4 years, you've been in the top 5 in the Big Ten recruiting rankings. I think 3 of those. And it was 2019 was the one exception. You did have Kofi in there. So I think that while you didn't have maybe the full collection of the pieces to put you up there, you did have what's likely going to be a 2-time first team All Big Ten type of guy. But yeah, as you were talking about, and we're looking at filling roles and filling needs, and the big man is of course going to be one where you do feel good about Omar Payne. You're going to want to add more depth, and if you do it with another kind of veteran in college, an older guy to pair with Omar Payne, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I know they do want to add a longer term big man and find that solution, even if it is more of a developmental piece. And we can talk about some of the guys they've offered here recently. They've offered a couple of those. William Berg, being from overseas, and Illinois and Purdue are his 2 big offers right now. And then, dare I say it, Adrame Dianga.
Yeah.
I think I did okay in terms of Arizona Compass prep. And he's from Senegal, and Illinois, Kansas, and Texas have all offered him within the last week. He's a really long, very thin, big man, 7 foot. He's listed like 200 pounds. I wouldn't say if he is heavier than that, it's not by very much. He's a good athlete, can block shots. That is something that they're interested in adding. And then, of course, would that guy, whether it be Berg or Dianga or whoever that is, would that be your second big man behind Omar Payne? No, not necessarily. I think you'd still be in the mix in the portal. But with your 2 guards, you lose Frazier, you lose Plummer, you lose DeMonte. They do want, you look at DeMonte's role, kind of that tougher two-way guard. I think they looked at Oweh being that. And if they're not getting him, like finding that in the portal is something that's obtainable. I think they can do that. And like we talked about, just the amount of talent that's in the portal in the spring, and for a team that's going to have a lot of success. And Curbelo says, I'm going to some point guard and saying, hey, we got Jaden Epps, the freshman, who's really good, but we need someone who can be in that mix and maybe play 20 minutes a game or maybe even be our starter. That would be very attractive.
Yeah, I think when it comes to high school kids, Derek, as you said, developmental big at this point, because there's not a guy I think who's going to come in and be the number 2 center you want. I would think so. Big guard that can play two ways. And then kind of a different piece. I kind of like this offer. Keyshawn Hall is really intriguing to me. Listen, he's not the most athletic guy, probably not going to jump through a gym, but that body type at 6'7", got a lot of baby fat on him, but I kind of like that for a team that hasn't had that here recently, and is just really skilled. He's just so different than any piece they have on the roster. And I know I made the comment on our board, like maybe Brad Underwood saw Mark Vitale and just said, like, I'd like a piece like that, a guy who can kind of create offense, be a bully. Vitale was a much better recruit ranking wise at that time. I know that, but just that kind of piece they don't have on the roster. We keep talking about fours that are skilled. That guy looks like a 4 and skilled. I don't know. I haven't seen him enough live there, Derek, but he intrigues me. The offer intrigues me.
Yeah, he is very intriguing. It's a crazy story. Like for a guy that went in July with literally 0 D1 offers and now has, I believe, 15 to 20, and now is starting to get some high majors. You got Illinois, Texas A&M, South Carolina. He told me that Georgetown is close to offering. It sounds like Illinois definitely likes him. Like, and you always wonder sometimes with some of these offers, are they going to be a take? Are they really that serious? Are they just putting their name in just to get in the mix? I think that they like him a decent amount. Like in particular, like if he's the backup plan for Ty Rodgers. And again, I don't think Illinois is out by any means on Ty Rodgers. It's just going to be a tough get. But in terms of what you're talking about with his skill set, he's different. Like, he's different than a lot of people in this class, but like his handle for being that big is pretty crazy. He's a very good playmaker. He's a very good passer. He's just kind of that multi-dimensional piece that you can put in a number of different positions. I would wonder about what he wants his role to be in college, because he talks about wanting the ball in his hands enough and wanting to be kind of be a big guard and that whole kind of deal. Does he see that at Illinois with Jaden Epps and with if Curbelo's here and that kind of deal?
Does Underwood bring back the spread offense? And he can run it from the do the what?
Oh, the pinch post, yeah that would be a nice spot for him. Back. It would. No, I don't think that's coming back. Yeah, we could spend a whole pot on talking about that offense. No knock on Brad. I think it definitely worked to Stephen F. Austin. I just don't know if he had the pieces early on. But
lobs to Aaron Jordan didn't work for you. Love Aaron, but it was just like, that need a different piece there.
Nah, didn't work. But yeah, he's very intriguing, different, and Brad talks a lot about having different pieces and different skill sets. And like if he's an option at the 4, and then a Coleman Hawkins who continues to develop, like that would just be a nice contrast of styles that you could throw in there and plug and play.
Yeah, he's slowly becoming, Derek. I'm scared to do this. My guy in this class. I got to watch more of him, but like I'm just really intrigued.
As long as you say it and I don't.
That's right, because he ain't getting him if Derek says it. All right, big recruiting weekend coming up, Derek. I know they got some underclassmen coming in, especially the sophomores. Is our guy Scott Burgess said the top 5 ranked in-state sophomores. That's the class of 2024, including 3 kids from Chicago St. Rita. We got to go watch them, apparently, because they are loaded. James Brown, Jaden Rada, and Marez Johnson, who's gotten a bunch of offers here recently, but also a couple more kids. Like, what a big weekend, Derek, because like in-state, like obviously Io came here, Adam Miller came here, but the last couple classes, they haven't been able to land those top kids. So to get that early start, I think is a positive.
Yeah, I think it's a big opportunity when you think about practice just starting and the buzz around the program and the excitement. I think that in-state players would have to come and see Kofi up close and Curbelo and just what Illinois has going on for a team that is a Big Ten title contender. And I think that when you look at these guys who in 24, I mean, as you said, Scott Burgess says either the 5 top in-state guys in 2024, so sophomores in high school, you're really establishing early on in their recruitments, like, we are a big player. It's not like a couple of years ago where you're telling recruits, okay, we're going to arrive. We haven't gotten there yet. We're going to do this and this. And maybe it's already pre-established in their heads. Like, Illinois isn't at the level of a Michigan State, or, fill in the blank of where some of these in-state players have left to go. I'm not saying that that's going to prevent Duke from still coming and hunting and getting what they want sometimes, or Gonzaga or whatever. But to have these guys on campus early is important. And when you think about James Brown, Morez Johnson, and Nojus Andrusaitis, I'm being challenged with pronunciations, but
you got it. I think you nailed it.
I think I got it. From Lamont High School, all 3 of those guys play for Mean Streets. And that's a nice connection where you have Tim Anderson, who was the program director for Mean Streets. Brown made a big move from Mac Urban Fire, who we played with throughout the spring and summer this year, going to play with Mean Streets here going forward.
Spicy.
Yeah, it is spicy. Yeah, those guys are good. Like, I know that Brown and Morez Johnson are guys that probably people, if you're familiar with in-state recruiting or just recruiting in general, probably heard their names. Morez is very athletic, 6'7" forward, is thought to have the upside of like a top 50, maybe even top 30 type of player if he puts it all together. And James Brown is I really liked him as a center who can make an impact at both ends of the floor. He can block some shots. He's very good with his back to the basket, and has the ability as he develops to extend out to the mid-range, maybe even shoot the three-point jumper. I think he's a very, very good prospect. And then you mentioned Jaden Reyna, who plays with Johnson and Brown at St. Rita. He plays on Team Rose in AAU. He's a very, very good shooter at the guard position, good handle, can make some things happen. Illinois offered here during this fall, so he's one to watch as well. And then Cooper Koch out of Peoria, Notre Dame, where his dad played at Iowa. So, that they've been in early. They had the family pull, and that's something you're going to have to overcome. But in-state guy, 6'7", shoots it well for a big man. Probably's got another inch or two to grow. Getting all 5 of those guys on campus at the same time is, it's nothing to scoff at. That's a nice pull.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good foundation there. All right, Derek, before we get out of here, let's focus on the Big Ten and what this looks like, because as we said, there's a lot of teams, especially Iowa, Penn State, Minnesota resetting, and Penn State and Minnesota. I know we don't think of those as competing with Illinois here in the last couple of years, but those are programs that have been pretty tough outs here the last couple of years. And as you said, Michigan State, Rutgers, Wisconsin loses a ton this year. Might not be a terrible thing for them after last year and all the issues they had. But all right, let's our submission to the Athletic, our number 1 team, homers. We went Illinois. Derek, why did you go Illinois number 1?
I went Illinois number 1 because I really boiled it down to mixing and matching them with the other guys in the top 3. When you look at Michigan, you look at Purdue. I just think Kofi is the ultimate trump card. Kofi is a problem for Purdue because if they put Travion on him, he doesn't have the size to really combat him and to guard him, to make sure that he can't get to where he wants and be able to score. And then if you look at Travion's numbers against Illinois, like, he had a hard time scoring in high volume against Kofi because, he's 3 inches taller than him. And Zach Edey, I know that he had a nice summer playing for Team Canada. I think that Kofi still has a legit edge over him. Love Jaden Ivey. And they have a lot to talk about in terms of, you're talking about now it's considered an older team, a veteran team, great coach in Matt Painter. And then you look at Michigan, I think that the fact that they have just a lot unproven in their freshmen, like, they have a ton of talent. Caleb Houston coming in is a 5-star on the wing who can really, really shoot it. You already obviously know about Hunter Dickinson. I just think that some of those other young pieces, I would lean towards the Trent Fraziers of the world, the Curbelo, who's played in the league for a whole year. I just trust Illinois' depth more and more of their veterans against what Michigan has, even though I think that it's going to be a heck of a race. And if Michigan figures it out sooner rather than later, they could be really tough.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there, Derek. The reason I picked Illinois is because I think they're the best regular season team. And I think it's mostly because of Kofi Cockburn. And just the veterans they have. I agree with you. Like, I'm between Illinois and Purdue because I think those are the two best regular season teams, most battle tested. And I just think they are built to win 15, 16 games in a Big Ten schedule. I think is a little softer towards the bottom this year. I think they're going to run roughshod over the bottom of this league with their big men. And then Jaden Ivey, Andre Curbelo, obviously very talented. So I think it's between those two teams. And like you said, I just think Kofi is the trump card to Purdue. He has owned them the couple times they have played. Michigan, I think, could be the scariest team in the NCAA tournament. So Michigan, if there's a Michigan fan listening to this, I think your team is really good. Despite the animosity between these two programs, which I love that this is now a rivalry. I think Juwan Howard's a heck of a coach. I had questions about it year one. Last year, I was really impressed by him, including the NCAA tournament run. They are going to be scary, but I think they'll go through their pains, right? And I think guys like Trent Frazier, DeMonte Williams, I think are going to have an edge. Obviously they can be taken advantage of maybe with the size that Michigan has, the athleticism they have. But I just think during a regular season, those guys are a little bit better. To be honest with you, I thought about Ohio State over Michigan, even though Ohio State without Dwayne Washington, I don't know if they have as much firepower, but that's another veteran team with EJ Liddell, who everyone knows I think is ridiculously special, and just a lot of depth. He's got a lot of wing players, and he's recruited good talent. I think Chris Holtman's a heck of a coach. So I think those are the top four. I wouldn't be surprised if one of those teams won and one of those teams was four. I think Illinois and Purdue are probably the safest bets there, but that's a really good top four in the league. And then you go, Derek, to the next group, which I think is Maryland, Indiana, Michigan State. That's the order we had. I might have had Maryland in the range of four if they would have gotten everybody back, but they didn't. And then Indiana, Mike Woodson's done a heck of a job getting some talent there and keeping everybody there. And then Michigan State, I just never count out Tom Izzo. So what do you think about that group, the Maryland or the Ohio State, Maryland, Indiana, Michigan State group?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said as far as that being the next tier. Maryland had an opportunity if they would have gotten Morcell back and Wiggins back to be able to be up in that kind of top ranging group. I know Andy Katz had him as number one in the power rankings at one point this offseason. That was before Kofi was coming back and everything sorted out. But that was a missed opportunity for them. I still think they'll be tough NCAA tournament type of team. Indiana, can they get Christian Lander to be what he was as far as a high school prospect? That's a big thing for them because they do have some good other pieces with Trace and with Race Thompson. Miller Kopp's a role player that can maybe benefit from a change of scenery. They got some decent pieces.
If I could take a piece from another team in the Big Ten besides like EJ Liddell, besides Stars, like Race Thompson would be very high up. Like I love watching that guy play. And there's games where I'm like, that guy's making as big of an impact as Trace Jackson Davis. But I agree with you. Do they have a guard that can go get a bucket? And there's a lot of pressure on Christian Lander to be that.
Yeah, Race gave Illinois some problems last year in terms of the matchup of the four. He's athletic. He plays really hard, can rebound, but that is what Indiana has lacked. And I think three-point shooting, just like perimeter scoring throughout the Archie Miller tenure was really lacking. It was something they didn't have, and that obviously led to his demise. And Michigan State, like you said, never count them out, but they are leaning decently heavy on like a Max Christie to really pop as a freshman. And then he's capable. I just think that is a lot to put on a freshman's shoulders. I think that's kind of maybe one of the differences between, some of those older veteran teams like Illinois, Purdue, even Ohio State versus a team like Michigan State.
All right. Then we had, I believe this would be the next tier, Rutgers, lose Miles Johnson, which I think is a huge, huge loss. But I like the way Pikel's teams play. You get Harper, Geo Baker back, Omar Rui, right, should take a step forward. Wisconsin, I don't know. Like I like Jonathan Davis, right? But I don't know what else is besides Brad Davison coming back for an 18th year. And then Iowa, Bohannon's back again for an 18th year. And I love, their sophomore forward who is really, really good.
Keegan Murray.
Yeah, Keegan Murray. And you get the McCaffrey brothers back, and they got a transfer in Philip Rebecca. But this is starting to get to the group that NCAA tournament seems like a toss up at best. And I probably have them on the other side of the bubble. Like I don't see the Big Ten getting much more than 7 teams in the NCAA tournament. This is kind of the crew where I think it's the cutoff. I think they'll be in the race. They'll be in those, last 5 in, last 8 in, but I just don't know if they have enough firepower to get in.
Yeah, Iowa's probably going to need Bohannon to score 20 a game with what they've got going on there and just the losses that they had. I don't like Wisconsin at all, which I know that you could say that in different off seasons and been dead wrong. I would be completely shocked. I think the shock value, if they somehow found their way into the top 6 in the Big Ten with what they have, it would just be mind blowing. But
yeah, because they obviously had issues, Derek. And maybe the reset of all that, they're better because they're just more together than they were last year. But Micah Potter was a good player. Trice was a good player, and you're losing those guys. So, Davison, Davis, Tyler Wall, Ben Carlson. I mean, these are such Wisconsin names, by the way, but that's what is that? I don't know what that is. So we're going to learn a lot about Greg Gard this year, I guess, more so.
It's not going to be good. I feel it's not going to be good. And Rutgers losing Miles Johnson and Jacob Young are 2 big losses for them. Otherwise, there are pieces on that team, obviously with Harper and to a lesser extent Baker, that you still like.
Paul McCahey. Don't forget about him.
Even a lesser extent, yeah.
All right. There's metrics, Derek, that are very high on Northwestern. A lot. Everything's coming back, basically, for them. So I guess that's probably why. But, how much better can they get? Boo Buie, Chase Audige, Pete Nance, Robbie Baran, Ty Berry, Ryan Young. It's just is there enough talent there? Is there enough to compete in the Big Ten and eke out 8 wins, 9 wins? I find that very, maybe they can against the bottom of this Big Ten that we're talking about. That seems pretty vulnerable.
Maybe for teams that aren't going to just eat them alive in the paint. I think that's when you have Young and Robbie Barron down there. Pete Nance is a nice piece. I think that he showed as far as offensive game, stretching the floor a little bit and being able to do some different things. He's a good athlete. And they have a couple of good guards, Bowie's good, and Audige. Bowie was very inconsistent though. So
inefficient. I kind of chuck. Yeah, that's my problem. If they had a guard who was efficient, if they had a
McIntosh
or Dimitric Trice or something like that. If they had that kind of player, I'd feel a lot better about them. It just sometimes those guys look like real chuckers.
Yep. Not working for them.
Yeah. And then the bottom. I think it's pretty clear. These are the 3 teams at the bottom. Nebraska, though, I think they're getting better. Hoiberg obviously starting to get talents, and the McGowan boys will certainly help them. But then Penn State, our boy Brian Snow out there now, and I like their coach Shrewsbury. I think he's going to do a really good job. But that whole roster is basically resetting. And speaking of reset, does Minnesota get anybody back from that? I don't think there's anybody. Can you name a Minnesota player?
I doubt it.
There's 2 guys I can recognize on their roster right now. Peyton Willis, which didn't he transfer out from Minnesota and then transfer back?
That sounds familiar, yeah.
And then Eric Curry. Those are the 2 guys I know.
Curry's still there? Oh, my gosh. Yeah, other than that, wow.
And then, Penn State's got Lundy, Sessoms, Dredd, Harar. Yeah, some solid play. The Jalen Pickett transfer, I kind of like that. So I think they can be.
Do they have Brockington, or is he gone?
He's gone. So I think they can be competitive. There's some guys that I think will battle. They can ugly up some games, get a couple wins against the Iowas, Nebraskas, Minnesotas of the world. But Northwestern, but I don't see, more than 6 wins for that team either.
No, it's going to be tough sledding for them. Nebraska is going to be a little bit more talented. McGowan's coming in. I liked the one that was there this past year as a transfer. He's got some talent, and then his brother's a 5-star. How about Alonzo Verge sighting? That's a throwback. He's there in Lincoln now. He's got some ability, inefficient, as we already used that term. I think that applies to him as well.
But here's the weird thing about Nebraska is they got 5 seniors who are gone after this year. McGowan's, Verge, Webster, Mayan, all those guys. So what's it look like next year? I don't know. It's gonna be really interesting. But
no idea.
Yeah. We also give our all Big Ten. I had the player of the year is Kofi Cockburn, our freshman of the year, Caleb Houston from Michigan. But I didn't include Trevion Williams. I felt dirty for it. I'm really dirty for it. But I think Coburn and Liddell are the best players. I can't leave off Dickinson. Sorry, Illini fans. I know you don't like him. I just think Jaden Ivey is probably going to be the best player in Purdue, so I put him on there. And yeah, I put Curbelo. I think him and Ivey are going to take huge leaps as sophomores.
I was right on board with you on all of those choices. Travion is a tough leave off. I would give the nod if it was Travion Dickinson. I would choose Dickinson over him. But if you wanted to make an argument as far as Curbelo and Travion or Ivy and Travion, I think Ivy's going to have the year. I think both those guards deserve to be on there. So I'm with you.
Good to talk hoops, Derek. I got to let you go to radio, man. I just forgot about that. So
you're good.
I'll let you out. Good to talk hoops, and plenty of content to talk hoops coming up. Thanks, man.
Sounds good. See you at media day.